Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started for our April show and tell. Thanks for joining us today. I've gathered some of our team members globally who are just going to share some things that are currently inspiring us. Hopefully, you've been joining us for our monthly webinars for some time now. We do it the first Wednesday of the month. So our next one will be on Wednesday, May 4th. Hard to believe that we are 4 months through the year now. Before we jump into today's webinar, a few really exciting things we just wanted to share. First, we love to hear from you during this webinar. We love the Q&A. We love the back and forth. Let us know what you are being inspired by. Share with us in the chat box. We are recording today's presentation and we'll send it out to you along with the links from today's webinar later this week. So please use the chat box. Just be sure to change the default to either everyone or attendees and panelists. It's different for different people, but that way everyone can see your comments as we go through the webinar. So some things that we want to bring to your attention, please do not miss. We just did an amazing women's runway fall winter 22-23 recap. I think a couple weeks ago with Melissa Moylan, our women's team presented this, all of the trends from the recent webinar or the recent runways. You can get that webinar and a free report by going on to fashionsnoops.com. This is for clients and non-clients, of course. So please check that out. Also on our homepage, you will see our intro to the season, fall winter 23-24. Lily Barelovich, our Chief Creative Officer, and I did a really great 25-minute recording just on kind of how our team got to where we are for the season. And of course, even if you are a non-client, you are able to download a free teaser report from our cultural sentiment. So I invite you to check that out as well. And finally, we just want to bring back to your attention one of our favorite webinars of the year so far, on gender inclusive apparel. That one was led by Nico and Danny from our team. You can still get that on-demand webinar and of course also a free teaser report for non-clients. All of these are available to you on fashionsnoops.com. So if you haven't, check it out at the conclusion of today's presentation. Give me just a minute. I'm going to switch over to our links for today. And I think first on the list, we have Mallory from our beauty team. Hey, Mallory, how's it going?
I'm well. I'm so excited for this link that I'm sharing today. I think it's so beautiful. So this is just something I came across that really inspired me. What this is it's a series of floral sculptures by Japanese florist Azuma Makoto. He created them for Dior perfumes. And as you can see, each individual sculpture has all the flowers of each perfume. This one also has oud wood in it because it's based on the oud perfume. And I love what he says about flowers and how he works with these arrangements. He says that working with flowers is almost like prayer. It's the way he talks about it, it's very spiritual. And we're definitely seeing that more spiritual, nature-based desire to, really connect with that spiritual side of nature. And just looking at the beauty of these sculptures, it's almost like a spiritual experience. There's something otherworldly about them. And I love this is such a creative collaboration by a brand. It's essentially simply promoting the ingredients within the perfumes, but it's doing it in such a beautiful, moving way. So I loved this series, super inspiring.
When I opened your link this morning, I couldn't believe that they were sculptures. They for sure looked like portraits. They looked like, paintings, photography, amazing.
Right, or even like 3D renderings. Yeah, no,
Right.
it's unbelievable. And there's such a sense of movement about them as well. It's almost like they're kind of vibrating with energy or shifting. They're amazing. I could look at them all day.
Yeah, you can kind of see the movement here and how they did it. It's right on. So beautiful. Thanks, Mallory. Next up is Hallie.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay,
You're
perfect. Good. Okay, so I have a lot to get into. I put a lot of links, but if you just want to click on the very first one, the After Gang link.
You got it.
So what I wanted to share today is something that I shared internally at our team's Visionary Pitch Day meeting a few weeks ago. So that's where our editorial team comes together. We bring our ideas to the new season and this is a bit of a peek behind the curtain. So you can really see how our ideas shape from that day and evolve and inform the season. So if you can go into presenter mode, I'm just going to speak to this, but for my pitch, I was so inspired by a film that I saw called After Yang. This is an A24 film. It's directed by Kogonado. The premise centers around a family who have just adopted a Chinese daughter, and they've purchased this techno sapien, the titular Yang, to be her older brother. So he teaches her and connects her to her Chinese heritage. At the beginning of the film, Yang starts to malfunction, and from there, we're kind of taken on this journey of a family coping with loss and grief. But there's just a deep humanity to this that really subverts the typical science fiction. And instead of asking, like, if robots have a soul, it asks how humans can make sense and loss and value of this non-human being. So I'm not going to have you watch the trailer because I really just want to speak to kind of the design of it and just how I think this is so thematically relevant and inspiring and important. So the film is classified as this futuristic sci-fi film, but what really struck me and really inspired me was how naturalistic it was. So I linked an article also on the deck. It's called, they basically name this soulful sci-fi. So it's almost this entirely new genre. So I don't want to show the trailer or anything. I just think that these aspects of it are so inspiring. So on the first slide here, I just want to talk about the set design. The production designer for the film was Alexandra Scholar. So I linked the interview also to see what she's talking about. But what is so fascinating about the making of this film is when she was first speaking with the director, they were both really intentional about making sure that it was never specified how far into the future it was set. But you still have these visual cues and kind of the story cues that allude to it anyways. Because I think that we're so used to watching these sci-fi films that are so shiny and it seems so far and almost so unreachable. So what I love so much about this is that it feels really fresh and new, and the film is entirely devoid of screens or any sort of digital devices, yet we still know that it's in this clearly technologically advanced world. But what I also love is that instead of kind of relying on the tech, there's a significant emphasis on nature and the symbiosis between humans and nature. There's like this whole beautiful grafting analogy that connects to these themes of family, but not enough time to get into all of that. So Scholar first talks about the home itself for the film and how they wanted this specific house from the 1960s, and that there were only this total of 3 on the East Coast where they planned to shoot. So they ended up finding the last one that was available, and they were able to get the rights to it and able to move in and kind of do what they wanted with the set to create the film. So when talking about the process of restoring it, what I really liked in this article, she notes that they weren't restoring it back to its beautiful self, but really moving it forward. So keeping like what was the integrity of the structure of the house, but making sure it seemed still futuristic and evolving. So they ended up integrating a lot of plant life all throughout the house. You can kind of see in the bottom right corner how that's kind of the middle of the structure. It's all built around this tree. So one of my, let's see, I lost my notes. Oh, so again, they also ended up removing all of the tech and the screens in the house. So you don't see any kind of like plugins. You don't see any sort of like devices that would make it seem almost anachronistic. It's just very like intentional about setting it in the future, but keeping the integrity in the way. So one of my favorite aspects is the decor. So mostly in the homeware and the kitchenware of the film, and even extending into the wardrobes, which I'll get into in a minute. But it feels so familiar and comforting and lived in. So in the article, they speak about how in this future agnostic time period, they had like a hard rule and a hard aesthetic rule for only one thing. Everything else they kind of had a little bit of leeway on, but their hard rule about the overall design was the rule that there was nothing that was immediately disposable, and that everything in the film had to either be renewable or biodegradable. So there's absolutely no plastic. So what happens aesthetically is it ends up using a lot of wood and copper and ceramic and clay pieces to really evoke that sensibility, which is completely the opposite of what you're used to seeing in a normal sci-fi film. But I really loved how they were just like thinking about, oh, we're in this future, it's a sustainable future, like what is the actual steps you would need to take to fill that in. So you can see in the kitchen there, it's a lot of wood paneling, wood chairs, and even on the shelves, like you see this like warm glow of the lighting, but it's a lot of clay pots, a lot of ceramic and glass even. So another theme that I really love is specifically about identity, specifically Chinese identity, which I thought was so beautifully executed throughout the design of the home. There's a huge significance on tea in the film, but also especially that Chinese identity comes through in the costume design. So if you want to go to the next slide, please, Michael. So the costume designer for the film was Arjun Basan. So he states that the intention was to create a modern world that felt like it borrowed from ancient traditions. So I feel like this is something that we speak a lot about internally, kind of what do we carry on to like sustain us for the future. But this is reflected again in that subversion of the typical sleek and metallic and almost cold science fiction looks, but instead it favors these breezy and layered silhouettes, cotton and linen, and these earthy shades of turmeric and indigo and brick, with the overall intention of the film being tactile and inviting, while still being science fiction. There's also this underlying theme of globalization. It's really apparent in this future world. So it's almost as if this world is borderless. Everything kind of flows together, really reflecting on how this family tends towards these traditional Chinese silhouettes from their daughter's heritage. So I think it's really beautifully done in that way. There's so much more I can get into. I really just barely scratched the surface. I've linked tons of articles and kind of interviews with the costume designers, the set designers, the director. There's an amazing, I know we love the A24 podcast here. There's an amazing episode with the director, and he's talking to Michelle Zauner, who's the author of Crying in H Mart, and they just have an amazing conversation about their process, their creative visions, kind of their identities. But I just really loved how we're just so fatigued by this like NFT aesthetic, this digitized design. So imagining this future that integrates nature and comfort and craft just as much as it does technology. It's really interesting, really feels naturalistic, and I feel like it's going to be a huge inspiration for us going forward aesthetically. But I just really love the film, and if anyone checks it out, please let me know.
Yeah, I was not familiar with this film before Hallie presented it at Pitch Day, and went and checked out some of it. And I think what you said really struck home, that the resemblance of humanity was still left intact in this version of the future, which often is so disconnected when we see anything sci-fi futurism related. The colors as well.
Yep.
Thanks, Hallie. Thanks for sharing that. Glad it inspired you. I think Jenna is up next, and she's also going to share something that she shared with us all at Pitch Day as well. Hi, Jenna.
Hi, Michael. And yes, I will. So I'm Jenna. I'm the VP of Content Strategy, and I just wanted to kind of summarize some of the thinking and also one of the key inspirations for my pitch for our Spring Summer 24 Pitch Day. So Michael, I think, yeah, you can just go into slideshow. So just to give everyone a background, everything on the screen is just kind of mood imagery that'll speak to what I'm touching on. But one of the things I was really inspired by and kind of drove a lot of my pitch for this season is a beautiful essay called In Praise of Shadows. And it's an essay on aesthetics written by the Japanese novelist Junichiro Tanizaki. And for anyone who's not familiar, Tanizaki lived from 1886 to 1965. And In Praise of Shadows is actually written in 1933, but wasn't even translated into English until 1977 after his death. And while it was written almost a century ago, I found a lot of symmetry and wisdom that really kind of applies to modern day. And the essay is essentially kind of a mourning of a way of life that's quickly passing out of existence due to Western-driven technology like the electric light. So in this essay, he explains how the Western world has kind of created this binary between lightness and darkness with very little language to talk about the different types of shadows. He explains kind of the darkness isn't really an absence, but a presence, which I really loved. And that while we think of light as being able to reveal things or see things properly, the reality is that light can also conceal. And so I took a lot of notes throughout this entire essay. I highlighted everything. There'll be, when we send this out, we'll include the link to the essay if you want to buy it for yourself. But a couple of things that it really got me thinking about was, you know, first and foremost, what happens to the human psyche when we kind of orbit in this realm of uncertainty, and how does that change us individually, as well as how does that change us as a community? And it also got me thinking, how did our seemingly invisible scars kind of start to reveal themselves in the shadows of the pandemic? And how will the processing of that nuanced trauma influence what we need and how we live our lives? So in the essay, Tanizaki also kind of talks about how Westerners really try to expose every speck of grime and really eradicate it, while those in Japan are really carefully thinking about how to preserve it. So he kind of talks about how the Japanese love things that bear the marks of grime, soot, and weather, that they love colors and sheen that kind of call to mind the past that made them. And this also really got me thinking about, how can design help to honor and process our trauma while also helping us move forward? So this kind of thinking kind of became the premise for my pitch. And while I won't go into all of the concepts that I presented, I thought I'd share just kind of one summarized aesthetic concept. So if we go to the next slide, looking at all of this, I think the way that we perceive and observe the world has changed a lot since the pandemic. And, for me personally, I'll look at a person, a place, a detail, something that I've seen before, but never actually noticed, now comes into focus. And what is that going to mean from a design perspective? Tanizaki explains that in general, he finds it hard to feel at home with things that shine and glitter. And I loved, he kind of talked through this process of the idea that silver should never be polished, but only can really be enjoyed once the luster has kind of worn off and it's begun to take on kind of a dark, smoky patina. And he talks a lot about this idea of the sheen of antiquity, which is essentially the glow of grime or something that's kind of touched over and over. And this really got me thinking, about the concept and the idea of patina and how that really visualizes age and time and gives, an object its uniqueness in a sense, and how, from that perspective, an object is no longer just an object, but this specific object, something singular and unique that can only kind of be addressed almost as a pronoun, as a you. And how products and spaces are kind of almost best when their singularity becomes really hard to deny. And, thinking through that lens and thinking through kind of the exhaustion we're all feeling of the Instagramification of spaces and design, how we're really going to start to be craving this kind of tinge of peculiarity and depth of color that shadows and visible aging really can provide, especially to the vacation aesthetic, which you kind of see on the screen. So with that, I'll kind of just leave you with a couple of questions that we've been thinking through internally as a company. But, just really starting to think of what kind of happens to our psyches and our needs as humans when we're kind of forced to orbit in the shadows. And, what have we learned in this really difficult chapter of the world that we can bring with us to kind of avoid the flat, excessive illumination of pre-2020, and really think about how we can design spaces and products that delight in those kind of candlelit depths of the present future.
I love that. I personally loved how you took an essay that has such deep meaning and really far-reaching sentiment and translated it into such a visual way for us, because it is so super philosophical, but when you kind of see this imagery that is super joy-inducing, I think that you certainly understand it on a whole other level.
Yeah, it definitely calls to mind these places that I feel like can be dark, and then you think about them as being positive and kind of what we're all been going through, kind of how that's going to translate into the future.
Right. It's great. It's great. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you for being vulnerable with that. I'm so glad that it actually affected you in such a way that, we were able to utilize for our own creative work. So we are going to move down the list now. And I think Chelsea, who's certainly going to bring some lightness to the conversation. Hi, Chelsea.
Hey everyone, I'm Chelsea. I am the senior strategist of Young Men's here at Fashion Snoops, and I'm clearly very inspired this week or this month. So I have a few links, but we'll start here with this Paper Magazine article. So this is Devin Hallball. So she's widely known as Hall Baddie on TikTok. She has nearly 300,000 followers, and she was featured in Paper Magazine last week. So as you scroll down, you can sort of see this photo shoot was focused on her like unique style of vlogging. So she carries a selfie stick around with her through the streets of Turkey, and she offers up these like sparklingly optimistic affirmations with her selfie stick and sort of just walking around the street being positive and beautiful. So that was sort of the aim of this photo shoot. And she spoke about the challenges and triumphs of identity and sort of emphasized the importance of representation of trans women in all forms. So that doesn't always have to mean that it's exuding this traditionally like hyper femininity. So that was something she was really focusing on in this interview. And this was in recognition of Trans Day of Awareness. So that was last week. So I just wanted to share this. I'm obsessed with her. I linked a TikTok as well. You don't have to watch it, but if anyone, when you get this link, just go to her TikTok and watch. She just exudes like positivity in the most fun way. So I'm glad she got this little representation in this article. It's so cute.
I thought that it was perfect that her images came right after what Jenna was just talking about.
Mm-hmm. And then secondly, you know, I always have to, as the fake skater girl that I am, I have to come with some sort of skate related link. So Palace's newest collab, Palace is a skate brand. Their newest collab is with Calvin Klein. And you can obviously see this campaign is like iconic. They have Willem Dafoe. In another one, they have Joan Collins, and she's super glam with like a fur, just hanging out with these skater kids. So far there's that iconic Calvin Klein billboard that's in Soho that's been switched to feature that collab logo. And then both Instagram accounts you can see have sort of been leaning more into this like Palace, like cheeky, not at all serious brand voice, which you can see with the caption there. So they've done a few photo shoots, a few short videos. I would definitely recommend going to either account and looking at the videos because they're just like super funny and sort of have no point, and that's very Palace. And it looks like right now the collab will include denim. You can see some of those basics. It looks like they'll have some underwear and then a scent as well. So that launches on Friday. I just wanted to share that.
This definitely took me back to the OG CK1 campaigns with in the mid 90s.
Yep. Like sort of pared down, but also still so cool.
Yeah. No, I like it a lot.
Okay. So the next one, this is about the movie. Oh no. Are you not going to really get into it?
Yeah.
Yes, if I can give you access.
Hold on. Yeah, you have to give me access. Sorry.
That's okay. I can just. Oh wait, I got it.
Okay.
I just shared it. Let me know if it works. But if it doesn't, I'll just talk you through it. But this is about the movie Fresh, which is on Hulu. I think it launched about a month ago. So it's the directorial debut of Mimi Cave. And also, just to preface, there will be some spoilers in this, and it is sort of disturbing. So just as a preface, so this is starring Sebastian Stan, who he was just in Pam and Tommy, and then Daisy Edgar Jones, who I love from the series Normal People. And she's also going to star in the adaptation of the novel Where the Crawdads Sing, which is another book that I love. So I love her. Again, slight spoilers ahead, but the film is based around this idea of cannibalism, which is disturbing and scary and gross. But I wanted to call out how the set design and coloring sort of stood out to me while I was watching it. So I took some stills from the movie to add here because I couldn't really find any other articles or anything sort of talking about this. But as we scroll through, so this is the entrance to the house of the main character, Steve. And you can see like the lighting is very warm. Obviously it's nighttime, but it's sort of colored to be more warm than like blue tones. It's more orangey and yellow tones. As you scroll through, you can kind of see how it's all very 70s vintage. So even here in this title shot, which is like 20 minutes into the movie, It's decorated beautifully. It's warmly lit. It's like looks cozy if you don't notice that there's a body on the floor. So as we get further into the film, you can see that Noah, the main character, is being held in this basement cell, but it's also sort of like retro and 70s inspired with this. It has this peachy carpet. So you can see he's sitting there in the cell with her, but it feels warm. Obviously it's cement and scary, but there's that mural, the warm lighting, there's the peachy carpet. If you keep scrolling, you can see that there's this like almost conversation pit-esque sunken mattress on the floor. If you keep going, you can just see there's these like rich wooden slats that are the door of her cell. And it's just so interesting. The mural focuses on these warm tones. There's like this exposed rock that's very retro and 70s in the hallway. And it's so beautifully designed, but it's so scary and disturbing. I could go into how those like peachy orange tones might be leaning into like the fleshy nature of it all. I don't know, but I just wanted to call this out because it reminds me of when Midsummer released. Obviously that was a while ago, but we were so intrigued at this concept of like well-lit horror movies and thrillers that happen in like these almost like natural, comfortable places. Yeah, there he is just like hanging out with her in her cell, like sitting on the floor after his long day of work. And we developed a design aesthetic after this called Daymare, and it was about these like everyday influences of thrill and suspense. And I just thought this was sort of similar, that it's so like purposefully warm and cozy and retro. And I know that it plays into sort of some of the themes in the film, which I won't give more away, even though that's sort of the main spoiler of it all. But if you can stomach it, I would recommend watching it. It is really interesting. It's on Hulu.
Yeah, and if you've seen the trailer, then you know it's pretty clear the subject matter. I have not seen the movie. I've read some articles about it, but I do find it really interesting that the two main characters, correct me if I'm wrong, but they meet in the meat section of the market, right? Or they meet at the market.
You know what? They meet in the supermarket. They meet in the produce section. But I think now that you mentioned that, he says he lives in the meat section, but he meets in the produce section. Yeah. And once you know, and so I've watched it. I think I've watched it twice through now. Once you know the first time, you go back and just look at all of the cues. They're eating Chinese food, and he says, "Oh, I don't eat animals," he says. He doesn't say I don't eat meat. He says I don't eat animals. And it's just all these little cues that are like gross.
Yeah. It's so funny how as trend forecasters, we can find the most beautiful imagery in the darkest and macabre of moments. So,
yeah.
It's perfect.
Okay, and then just to lighten it up after that, lastly, I wanted to share this concept of low entry investment opportunity. So this is from a startup called Multi. This is a beauty and wellness startup that's co-founded by a creator that I've been following for a while. Her name's Nina Huen. So there's no products launched yet, but there's been a social presence since last fall. At the end of January, the company opened up an investment access round exclusively for any Black, Indigenous people of color earning under $60,000 in income a year. And the goal was to open up the doors for people to invest in a startup that often aren't given that opportunity. And the investment amounts could be anywhere between $100 and $500. So it also didn't require like a huge amount of capital up front. So then about a day ago, they released this infographic that you see here. So this is showing the breakdown of who invested in that first round. So you can see there was the breakdown of gender, of race, and then also anyone who identified as LGBTQIA+. But then as you go further through the slides, you can see they put who wasn't represented in this first round of investing. So there were no people identifying as trans or non-binary, no Indigenous people or people with disabilities. So I thought this was interesting that they were celebrating their wins while also acknowledging the gaps and how they could improve. So in an attempt to fill in some of those gaps that they saw, they're opening up another round by offering the communities that weren't represented sponsored investment spots. So these will be covered by the founders. So basically the founders will invest these amounts on behalf of anyone in those communities who are interested in investing, so that they're given the opportunity to become investors and work with startups. And these spaces are sort of like so often gate kept that they really wanted to open up the opportunity for people with lower incomes, to be investors in something that they believe in. So I thought that that was really interesting. I don't know that I've seen any a company do something like this before. I thought that was so cool. They haven't launched any products yet. I know that one thing they've leaked is like zit stickers and serums. So I think they're going to focus on like skincare and wellness, but I just thought that was so interesting. And then this infographic that they shared was so cool.
I think it's great because typically this is a really positive thing coming out of an industry that we typically have really negative connotations with, especially in their outreach and their marketing. So this is really refreshing.
Yeah, super cool.
Cool. All right, we'll follow them. Thank you, Chelsea. Great links. Erza, hi.
Hi, I'm bringing it back to doom and gloom.
That's all right. Ebb and flow.
Both of my links are data visualizations of our climates, but in different ways. So this first one is called Earth's Black Box. It's equal parts art installation and time capsule. And it really aims to document the physical changes brought by global warming and humanity's geopolitical responses to them. So as you see here on the right, it's a live recording of chronicle actions that might lead to the demise of our planet. So it's really holding leaders and citizens accountable of the climate crisis through, you have social media posts, news stories, and climate data. And this is done by hundreds of solar powered data sets, measurements, and interactions within this box, which can withstand climate change. And it's to show, the health of our planet to future generations, but it even includes a world that outlives humans and begins again another time. So it's really like inspiring urgent actions next time around. And they were talking about how it's like similar to the global seed vault that we've talked a lot about in Norway, which stores all of the world's seed supplies in case we need them as backup. But this is just a different way, because I feel like the sky's the limit when we can preserve digital information of the future and really give them like a game plan of like, this is what went wrong, and maybe do it better next time. So I thought it was a really interesting way to hold everybody accountable and kind of like set the future up for a better turn.
Yeah, and Erza, I'm glad you mentioned the seed vault because I was going to. Can you just mention it one more time? So
Yeah.
Remember the specific name of it?
Yeah, so it's called a Silbard Global Seed Vault.
Right.
And it's this like so-called doomsday vault. It's designed to provide like a backup supply of the world's seed samples, and it's in Norway.
Right, in Norway, yeah, and it's kind of built into this like cliff, if you will, and yeah, it's really fascinating. We've used it a few times for projects the last few years, but Google it if you haven't heard about it. It's really interesting.
Cool. And so this next one, it's a Dutch design studio called Raw Color, and they created the Temperature Textiles collection, which is embedded with climate change data. So this collection features blankets, scarves, and socks, and it's knitted with infographics either about temperature change, sea level rise, or greenhouse gas emissions in 2100. And they call this essential visual of the facts. And, the studio liked the idea of like having like information be a little bit more tangible to people and giving greater importance to it because of it. And, even outside of climate, see, those are the socks that like visualize the rising sea levels. So I thought that was interesting. But even outside of like climate, all of our actions and interactions are being recorded and visualized online. And since data is represented by graphs, lines, and colors, this company is saying how it's really ideal to transform them into graphic patterns on textiles and, visualize stories here.
Wow, the colors are so beautiful that they use.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah. Thanks, Erza.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, hi guys, I'm Michael, VP of Men's. So I have a couple links to share with you today. The first is a new movie that came out a couple weeks ago. It was in the theaters here in the US, I think also in the UK, and you can, I think, find it on video on demand now. But it is called The Outfit. I'm going to just show you a hot now that our menswear team did on it. Instead of playing the trailer, you can always play the trailer on your own. But I watched it last weekend, super inspired by it. It's a crime drama set in 1956 in Chicago, but the entire movie takes place in a tailoring shop. And you probably are familiar with this actor. You've seen him in a lot of things. He's amazing. His name is Mark Rylance. He is Academy Award-winning British actor, playwright. He also used to be the artistic director of the Globe in London. So very, very amazing actor. So he plays this very unassuming Chicago tailor who is trained on Savile Row. His clients become a plethora of gangsters in 1956 Chicago. So the suits are absolutely gorgeous. He trained at Huntsman on Savile Row for this film, which I found really fascinating. So when you play the trailer, you'll actually see him cutting through the fabrics. And then all of a sudden, the movie takes a really dark turn because the gangsters are bringing people in and asking him to actually surgically or perform surgery on them because they've been shot. So he's using his tailoring skills for actually, sewing up their wounds and whatnot. But the fabrics are absolutely gorgeous, and I loved how the entire movie takes place in and around that tailor shop. So please do check it out if you can. The trailer is there for you as well. The outfit is kind of a double entendre. It's a name for kind of the organized crime syndicate there in Chicago. They call themselves the Outfit, but of course we think of fabric and clothing at the same time. So check it out. It was really inspiring. This one I was really excited about. So I am married to someone who's obsessed with March Madness, as we call it here in the United States. It's the month-long college basketball tournament. Before I kind of explain this, I just want to play this, and then I'll explain what this is all about. This is a campaign by Buick. It will speak for itself. So let me just play this really quickly.
Who's going to be the hero tonight? 3 seconds. For a national championship or overtime. Ogumbawale for the win. Good! Enrique Ogumbawale wins the national championship for Notre Dame. Enrique does it again.
So as you saw, 40% of athletes here in the US, I don't believe that's a worldwide statistic, are women. 10% of the TV coverage is dedicated to women. So Buick is doing this whole campaign, and you've seen this on TV if you're here in the States, especially during March Madness while you're watching men's games. But there's all sorts of examples here. This one is called Golden Goal. This one's called Record Breaker. So there's all these different examples of women breaking records in athletics. But of course, the screen is black the entire time because, of course, you probably didn't see it because it wasn't televised. Some other things that they're doing about it. By the way, the campaign is called See Her Greatness, which you see here. So that's kind of what the whole thing is around. But this is the 50th anniversary of Title IX here in the United States, which is what prohibited discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs and athletics. So there's a lot of things that are going on. ESPN is preparing a lot of programming around Title IX in the coming months, celebrating the law and its impact on female athletes. Also, Michelob Ultra, the beer brand, pledged $100 million a few months ago to media time in women's sports over the next 5 years, sponsoring that. And also just last week, Degree, the deodorant brand, invited fans to fill out women's March Madness brackets, of course, noting that everyone talks about men's March Madness brackets. Also, Buick did on their YouTube channel. There are some in-depth interviews and Q&A sessions with players and coaches. The series is called Together, and it's basically to discuss, a lot of these moments that we miss. Here's one about women's soccer hurdle, etc. So I really love that. I think that it is so true that women athletes almost make up half of our amazing athletes, and yet all of this media attention is always given to the men. So I just wanted to call that campaign out. Nico, you're up.
Hey everyone, Nico here from the culture team. And the first thing I want to show you, I just got it in the mail on Monday, and it is issue number 6 of Atmos, which is a climate and culture magazine that we love here at FS. They're great at bringing more nuanced, intersectional, and poetic perspectives to climate issues. And the 2022, because they're an annual issue, is called Beyond, and they have great little foiling on the cover here. I haven't got a chance to fully read it yet, but I did want to show you guys just a couple of quotes from the editor's letter that I'll read to you just so that you can get a gist of what this issue is about. So the editor, who is Willow Defabau, said that whether through science, fiction, or divination, prophecy, or philosophy, our species has always been obsessed with endings, including today when it feels like Armageddon is always looming, or worse, already here. We are always trying to jump to the end of our stories. We want to know how it all turns out, to arrive at our destination, to be able to look back on our trials, and hopefully to say that we made it through. This is one of the many reasons why the COVID-19 pandemic has been so challenging without a definitive end in sight. It has been difficult to see beyond. For beyond, we wanted to look past the horizon for a glimmer of hope, imagining a future on the other side of the oppressive forces that are currently choking our world, from disaster capitalism, white supremacy, colonization, and yes, the pandemic. So also flip through some of the imagery just so you guys can see. I believe that we featured this artist in our Untamed design aesthetic and some more photos. I got the issue with Grimes on the cover because I'm a Grimes fan and it looks really cool. So yeah, that is the first thing I wanted to show you guys. It's pretty thick. It's about $25, and I have to say it's definitely worth it because you get a lot of content from it. So the second thing I'm really excited about is a new Apple TV series called Pachinko, and it is based on a book written by Min Jin Lee, and it was written over the course of 20 years. And it was actually a national book finalist in 2017. And the story of the book, and of course the show, is a 3-generation epic which centers around the life of a Korean woman who grew up during the Japanese occupation of Korea and the family that she builds. And through the decades, her family moves through Japan and America even, and they're surviving through poverty, through World War II, discrimination, and it spans from 1910 to 1989. So I thought maybe we could just play like maybe a minute of the trailer just so you guys can get a feel for it. It's very emotional and just very intimate.
All right, I think we have time. We'll play the whole thing. Here we go.
아가 생길 기다. 꼭 버티낼 기다. 반드시 헤쳐나갈 기다.
기억하고 싶어, 동서. 얼굴들도 상상해본 적 한 번도 없어? 다른 선택을 했다면 어떻게 살았을지.
엄마, 왜 그래요?
선자 씨에게 평생 살아온 고향을 떠나서 새로 시작하지 않는다면 그럴 수 있겠어요?
And people like us, we don't need to walk in our family's shadows.
지가 밤낮으로 일해가 손톱이 다 부러지고 내 아는 부족한 거 하나 없이 키울 겁니다.
앞만 봐.
Yeah, so I don't know about you guys, but like I have goosebumps. Like that trailer really like reflects the way that the show makes you feel. When I watch it, I always feel like I'm on the verge of tears, and it makes me think about the generations of my own family and all the things that they've had to get through to get where my family is today. And I read the book actually right before they announced that the series was going to be released on Apple. And it's really interesting because there's definitely a cultural fascination right now with generational stories and generational trauma. And it's something that we talked about actually in Visionary a lot in our Visionary pitch day. It's interesting in the backdrop of a time where we see technology accelerating, and we're also living in a very atomized society where people feel very lonely at times. And it's been a huge topic of research recently. And, of course, there's the new learnings around generational trauma and that kind of conversation happening as well. I think in this time, people really want to find a way to contextualize their identity and their life beyond their individual life and understand themselves as part of a larger story that's not only affected by their own decisions and their current circumstances, but also by the decisions and the circumstances of their ancestors. And I think this story is especially important as Korean media continues to gain popularity in the West, because a lot of people, including myself, don't know the history of Korea and the struggles that Korean people have gone through during Japanese occupation, during World War II, and during the Korean-American War. So as we broaden our representation in media, we're always faced with reckoning with the experiences of marginalized people. And I think that this show is really important to that.
Thank you for sharing.
So this last link is a little bit lighter. It's more of a fun one. Charlotte Kings North is a designer who does these really whimsical upholstery projects, which I think resemble some kind of moss or fungal growth taking over the furniture. It has a really interesting look, kind of straddling a sense of wild nature and human craft. So many words come to mind when I look at these images, like non-conforming, there's this tension and a wildness to it. It almost feels like a piece of furniture that's just come out of the shimmer in the book and movie Annihilation, just a complete discombobulation of form. And I think of it as like our SS23 design aesthetic release meets our fall winter 23-24 design aesthetic poetic.
Wow, I wonder how comfortable they are to sit on.
I know, right? But they are beautiful.
Yeah, some of them are really, no, it's super cool. They definitely resemble little creatures of sorts.
Yeah, so cool.
So whimsical. Wow, the colors are great too.
Yeah, and texture too is awesome. It's like
Yeah.
some of them look very mossy.
Awesome, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and Patricia's gonna bring it up and wrap up today's show and tell. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Michael. Hi, everyone. So my first link is about the reopening of the iconic House of Dior in Paris after 2 years in renovation. So this was, of course, the original home of the fashion house, and is now a sort of new way for the brand to show a visual evolution of the house. And there are incredible displays there, but one of my favorites is this giant marble stairway that is surrounded by almost 2,000 Dior objects that were 3D printed. And that includes iconic Dior bags, shoes, perfumes, and about 500 miniature dresses that start from Christian Dior New Look to all the dresses from Saint Laurent, Marc Bohem, Gianfranco, Galliano, Raf Simons, and of course, Maria Gracia's jewelry. There's a quick video that we can watch on the staircase that I love. I think it's, yeah, right there.
Wow, and they were all 3D printed, Patricia?
Yes, they were. And the space also includes the boutique, of course, the ateliers, a restaurant, gardens, and a private guest suite. So just a really cool spot to visit if you're in Paris.
It reminds me very much of the traveling Dior exhibit over the last handful of years. It was in Brooklyn. I saw it in Richmond in Virginia, but it's very similar because they kind of had this color story of all the various fabrics from over the years of the house's history. And it was kind of arranged just like this. So
right, yeah. But I just love that there were miniature versions of all the iconic dresses.
It's amazing. Wow, wow, wow.
And then my second link, it's kind of related because it also speaks of miniatures. So I came across this really fun Instagram account that recreates this miniature runway looks. And these are all designed by Caroline Helson, who's a model. And she says that this project was born out of a feminist mission because she really didn't like all the pink and glittery outfits that Barbies usually wear. So she started to make these new cool outfits that she saw on the runways. So yeah, I think these are like really iconic looks that we've been seeing the past few seasons, that I just love how she made it, tiny versions of them.
I love that the now iconic Miu Miu mini skirt is there, which of course is, if you've read, there's been a ton of articles about how it's literally showing up everywhere.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Wow, this is great. The time and the craftsmanship that's required for these. So good. Yeah, everything was very small and Barbie inspired in your links today. I like it. Thanks, Patricia. Thanks, team. So that is our April show and tell. Again, we'll follow up with you guys. This video will be available on our YouTube channel later this week, and you'll get an email with all of the links. Stay connected with us. Let us know things that are inspiring you as we go. And we'll be back and we'll do this again on Wednesday, May 4th, same time and same place. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful day.